possibly could. It could have been running from a friend or doing a lap around the track or just running away from your neighbor's dog who was about to bite you. Now try to think what you felt or how you felt at the end of this sprint. How badly were you panting? How fast was your heart beating? How you just wanted to lie down on the ground and stay there till your breathing stabilized? How you felt like you had no energy left in you? Now hold on to this thought and let me ask another question. How many of you have ever in your life lifted one of these? A full LPG gas cylinder. Okay, great. Now can you recall the weight of it? Exactly, 29.5 kilograms it is. Now imagine carrying this 29.5 kilograms worth of gas cylinder on your back and then breaking into a sprint and running as fast as you possibly could. And if that was not enough, imagine running upstairs while being faced with the temperatures of an ice cream freezer. Now what you'd feel at the end of this sprint is what we feel every 3-4 vertical steps above 7,000 meters. Our bodies are dying in this freezing cold. Our lungs are killing us because there's very little oxygen to breathe. The atmospheric pressure is pounding on us. Our legs are on the verge of giving up. And the heart is constantly praying at this wall that we're climbing, this space that we're climbing. God, please don't let it break and bury us all in an icy grave. And this is not a one-off thing. This is something which on some expeditions can go on for 20, 30 days at a stretch. And despite all these miseries, we have to keep telling ourselves to go on, that it's not so bad. And maybe when we reach the top, if we reach the top, the views from the top will be worth it. Now I imagine some of you have already started to think that this does not sound like a lot of fun. In fact, it sounds a little harsh, a little crazy, a little dangerous in fact. And why would a man of a sane mind commit to a thing like this? To be frank with you, I never thought I'd be doing something like this. I never thought I'd be climbing mountains, let alone Mount Everest. It all started when during a trek, this man, Mr. Haris Dhawan, a professor at my college and the trek leader for that particular trek, spoke to me about the field of mountaineering. He said there is a sport called mountaineering where people go out and climb mountains. It's not very popular or very satisfying, and once you get bit by the bug, there'll be no looking back. I very clearly remember sitting across a bonfire when he on a very lighter note said, we should go out and climb high mountains. We should go out and climb mountains like Everest. Back then, we all had a good laugh about it and went to sleep. But this thought stayed with me. I kept wondering as of what it is that people go out and climb mountains for. Why would anybody go out and climb mountains? And young and curious that I was back then, I decided to go explore this idea for myself. So upon returning back from the trek, I went and learned all the art and craft of mountain climbing from a mountaineering school in Darjeeling and set out to climb my mountains. Like the speakers in front of me, before me, clearly said, when I started climbing mountains, I was also very brash and very, for the lack of a better word, egoistic. I wanted to climb for glory and conquest and all the wrong reasons that I now think of. But then again, I was right out of mountaineering school, very young, had a burning desire to climb as many mountains as I possibly could in as little time as I possibly could. And this burning desire in me was only matched by this stupid belief in myself that now after all these skills I've acquired, all this training that I've done, I was invincible. I could conquer any mountain in the world. So I teamed up with a friend of mine from mountaineering school and we went ahead to climb this mountain. It's called Mount Deotibba. It's a 6,001 meter mountain in the state of Himachal Pradesh in the Pir Panjal range. So young, we decided upon a day, packed our bags, whatever we needed, and we set. So young and energetic and eager, more importantly, eager we were to climb this mountain and prove ourselves to the world that in an utter disregard to the rule of nature, the rule of acclimatization, we gained 4,500 meters in 2 days to reach the base camp. Now, acclimatization is a concept where you allow your body some time to adapt to the increased altitude and the decreased oxygen levels. Doctors will tell you that you should gain no more than 307 meters, which is 1,000 feet per day. And for every 900 meters that you gain, you should rest a day. But here we were, sitting at the base camp, thinking that all these things written in the books or what the doctors say, they're only for sissies and, we're here, nothing's happening. But as you're guessing, it's not really going to end up well for me. Next morning, when I woke up, I had a bad headache. See, I've had headaches before in life, and as the day progresses, they pass away. So I ignored this one and kept walking. We carried on with that day's work. With every passing minute now, I was deteriorating. Altitude was catching up with me, and by the time I reached this ridge, I had no more energy left. It felt like there were 1,000 drums beating in my head. It felt like somebody was choking my neck. I couldn't breathe anymore. I was puking every half an hour. And where I took this picture, from where I'm taking this picture to where my friend is, it took me half an hour to cross this little distance. And because my speed had grown very slow, the distance between me and my friend increased a lot, and he disappeared in the mountains. And mind you, this is just two of us in this mountain because we're young and brash and borderline stupid. So I remember being in this really bad state. I went to this rock which looks like a triangle right there and decided to sit down. I don't know how this happened, how weirdly this happened, but as I sat next to the rock, I slowly slid into this comatose state, and I was unconscious. Next thing I remember is this very panicked-looking friend of mine trying to wake me up. I don't know how long was I out for, how long was I unconscious for, but I do remember that when I sat next to this rock, it was still day, and when I regained myself, it was night, so it must have been a very long time. Very cold, still in a terrible, terrible state. We decided to go back to our base camp, the next camp, the previous camp, because we couldn't gain any more. Again, I don't remember how long this walk was, but I do remember that I was no longer in control of myself. My vision was hazy, I couldn't see myself. I would lift my leg up, but I was no longer in control of where I was landing it. And every time my leg would touch the ground, there would be an electric shock running to my head. I went to the tent, crashed immediately, was out for 2 days. Here I tried to push against the rule of nature and paid heavily for this. Next few days to come were very, very bad. I couldn't even walk for 10 steps. The most obvious thing to do at this point of time was to go back to the warmth and safety of our houses. And God knows I did want to do this. But two things would have happened if I would have gone back that day. One, I would have gone back with a really bad taste for mountaineering. And two, I would have never been able to find out why do people climb mountains. Because wasn't that the only reason I was here in the first place? So I spoke to my friend, we had enough supplies, we decided to stay back and not go. In fact, he was also not feeling so great, so we stayed. After recuperating for 7-8 days, I think we were able to go out and climb this mountain. We fixed this line, a very steep, almost 65 degrees steep. And after a few days, we were able to stand on top. This is my friend, not very happy with me right now in this picture. Now, after climbing this mountain, I did realize all the miseries of climbing mountain, what all can go wrong, but I still didn't have the answer to what do people gain, why do they want to climb? So I decided that now this mountain, the mountain that I would climb for these answers would be Everest. Why Everest? Because Everest was that one mountain where mountaineers from across the globe descend, and if there was one mountain in the world which could provide me with these answers, it had to be this one. But before going to Everest, I had to prepare myself. I had already broken the 6,000 meter mark on Deotibba, so the next benchmark was 7,000 meters, which we broke on this mountain. It's called Mount Satopan, 7,075 meters in the Gangotri range of the Garhwal Himalayas. We had a bevy of features to negotiate like this. This is a crevasse field, as you see. Very, very bad place to be because sometimes there are invisible crevasses which you can just fall in. Then we had these very slippery rock walls which we crossed. Then we had these very technical mixed ice walls and some very steep ridges. A fall from the ridge here could send you down by almost 10 stories. Not a very nice place to be. Now, after breaking the 7,000 meter mark on this mountain, we decided that we were now finally ready to go and climb this mammoth of a mountain called Everest. To climb Everest, one has to first get to this place called Kathmandu, which happens to be the capital city of Nepal. And from there, take a very sketchy flight to this small village called Lukla. Now, Lukla, according to me, has the world's, what I believe, has the world's most dangerous airstrip. Because as you see, it just ends into the oblivion. For some reason, if your flight does not take off at the end of the airstrip, you still wait. Now, after Lukla, walking for 10 days, slowly acclimatizing your body to the decreased oxygen and increased altitude, we reached to this place called base camp, which is somewhere here. Base camp is at 5,300 meters. To put things in perspective, 5,300 meters is 5.2 kilometers straight up from where I'm standing. It's an incredible feeling to be at the base camp, to see the objective that you're going to climb so close to you. Now, above the base camp, we set up various camps at progressive altitudes and do a lot of rotations to, like I said, shock and adapt our body to the mountain. And then this goes on for 4 to 6 weeks. And after this 4 to 6 weeks, we wait for what is called the summit window. Now, summit window is 2 or 3 days worth of time where very high-speed winds called the jet streams recede a little above, the Everest tip, thus allowing us 2 or 3 days to go and stand on top. Now, at this point, let me tell you that Mount Everest is as high as the cruising altitude of a 747. Now, after waiting for another 10-15 days for the summit window to open, by the way, this is a very boring thing, very frustrating thing, to be so close to the objective and yet have to wait there. And I have been known to be a very impatient guy. But having learned my lesson on my first mountain, after having gotten properly beaten up by my first mountain, I decided to not do anything stupid and stay there. After the wait is over, I remember on the 14th of May, the time came for us to set out for the summit. This is an area called Khumbu Icefall, which we crossed as the first barrier. This has a lot of weird-looking structures made out of ice, which move occasionally, and sometimes they fall on climbers. After this, you have to cross these many crevasses that they are there. Crevasses are basically openings in a glacier, which can go as down as 80-90 feet sometimes, and we use these aluminium ladders to cross this. Above this is the endless grind between Camp 1 and Camp 2. And above this is this 800-meter steep incline to Camp 3. Now, Camp 3 is a very interesting place because while climbing to Camp 3, you have to constantly look up because there's sometimes very big rocks coming very fast at you. And it's not uncommon for them to have hit people. There's also a very interesting thing that you have to do, and that is you have to always be connected to a rope because the area is very slippery, it's got a very steep incline, and there has been stories of previous climbers have woken up in the middle of the night to take a piss, forgot to attach themselves to the safety line and slipped and fell to their death. There's a storm coming to the campsite. As you can see, one of these is my tents. Now after this, Camp 3, we move on to this place called Camp 4. Now Camp 4 is at 8,000 meters. 8,000 meters and above is known as the death zone. Now why it's called the death zone? Because there's 1/3 oxygen up there as we're breathing in this room right now. So if I had to put things in perspective again, if I could take one of you from here and place you in the death zone right now, in the first 10 minutes you'll pass out. And in the next 10 you'll probably be dead. We can survive slightly longer because we had, like I said, shocked and adapted our body over a longer period of time to be there. But even then, in the death zone, even our bodies aren't really adapting. They're deteriorating, they're constantly decaying. So we get very little time in the death zone to complete our goal. Above death zone, we leave for the summit push, which has 4 parts, majorly. The balcony, South Summit, Hillary Step, and the summit itself. Now, a very interesting incident happened to me at the summit push. Now, because Everest is the only mountain which everybody wants to climb, every mountain in the world wants to climb. I mean, they want to climb a lot of mountains, but everybody wants to climb Everest once. Uh, there's a lot of people who descend on Everest every year, which results in a very strong crowding of the route, and there's only one line to go up. Now, in this line, you are at the mercy of the person in front of you for your speed. So if the person in front of you is walking very slow, you'll have to walk at his speed. And sometimes that results in your body not heating up, not warming up. And if you're exposed to temperatures which are as cold as minus 25, minus 30 degrees, that's a very bad thing. Your toes will freeze, your fingers will freeze, your earlobes will start to freeze. Now I remember, by the time I reached balcony walking slowly after all these people, I decided that I can't do this anymore. And while at balcony everybody stopped to change their supplemental oxygen bottles, the route ahead was clear and decided to shoot off because according to my pressure gauge, I already had more than half of my oxygen left. Little did I know that because of that temperature, my oxygen gauge had frozen and it was stuck at the half mark. So by the early hours of 19th May, when I crossed the south summit and was waiting at the edge of Hillary's Step, which is a 50-meter rock, I had run out of oxygen. Very interesting things happen to you when you suddenly run out of oxygen at this altitude. Of course, your breathing goes very heavy, your heart starts to pound, and even if you rest, nothing will normalize. But the most dangerous thing that happens to you at this altitude is that you'll start to feel sleepy. It will become very difficult for you to keep your eyes open. And this is happening because your brain is shutting down. And what will happen next is you'll curl up like a baby next to some rock and sleep forever. Now this is where I would like to emphasize the need of doing anything with a good team. Because if it wasn't for my climbing partner that day, I would have been another statistic on the mountain. I would have been the 12th person who died in Mount Everest that year. So he reached out to me, he saw me curling up like a baby next to the rock. And he said, "Prem, why are you waiting here? I mean, it's been 15 minutes. In my head, it's only been 10 seconds, but it's been 15 minutes. So he checked my oxygen bottle, immediately changed it. And boy, oh boy, do you feel nice. When suddenly, after a deprivation of so many minutes, that first gust of oxygen reaches your lung, you feel like you've tasted Amrit. It feels good. You feel like Superman. It feels like you were drowning in a river and somehow somebody pulled you out. In the next half an hour or so, we had the privilege of standing on top of Mount Everest, just like before this. It's a very surreal feeling to be standing on top of the planet. On one side, you could see the entire Khumbu Glacier. On one side, you can see the Tibetan Plateau. And if you look straight, you can see the whole curvature of the earth, how it bends. But this surreal feeling does not really last for too long, as in the next 5-6 minutes that you're there, you're reminded that climbing a mountain is a two-way journey. And while going up is optional, coming down is mandatory. Also, we were pretty scared of this storm which was growing up in the mountain next to us, and we didn't want to get tormented by this, so we came down. That day, a lot of people went home having achieved the zenith of their mountaineering careers. But for us, it was just the beginning, because not only were we able to climb Mount Everest, but in the 6 months that followed, we went ahead and climbed the highest mountain in the continent of Europe, Mount Elbrus. Then we went ahead to climb Mount Karsten Pyramid, which is the highest point in in Oceania. And then we went ahead to climb Aconcagua, which is the highest point in South America. Until now, I've been able to climb 15 mountains in all, and I'm looking for my next project now. Now, to the bigger question of why do we climb these mountains? See, there's no simple answer to this, and a lot of people will tell you a lot of different things, including some people say that we climb mountains because we're cerebrally degenerated. Others say that if you have to ask, you'll probably never know. But if I had to put it to words without malignant the essence of it, or without diluting the emotion behind it, I would say that I climb mountains because it gives me a different perspective of life. It tells me that in this bigger scheme of things, how small we are, how insignificant we are. I climb because it doesn't confine me spatially or temporally in these complex rules that most things in life come with, and lets me express myself the way I want to express myself, and with immediate gratifications. I climb because by pushing me out of my comfort zone, it makes me realize who I am. It makes me aware of myself. I climb because it teaches me things like patience to not push and rush through things. Persistence to doggedly pursue my questions, my ideas, my dreams. And perseverance to get back up every time life throws me down. I climb because it makes me reach the pinnacle of my focus, where every other thought in my mind is absent, is gone. And I'm consumed in the moment. It's like my physical manifestation of meditation. And finally, I climb because I'm still looking for that answer to why